Thank you. It's good to be back in the gauntlet here. It feels a little larger than I remember, but it's good to see your face. So thank you for having me. So my name is Ryan Welsh. I'm the founder and CEO of Kyndi. I believe that for artificial intelligence to thrive, it must be explainable. And I always love to pause there because I can feel the tension in the room while everyone waits for me to explain why it needs to be explainable. And kind of going back to the beginning, we have all said something similar to this statement probably in the last 3 years, and I agree with it. I believe that AI has the potential to be as broad of an impact to software as relational databases. I also believe in Andrew Ng's statement that AI is the new electricity. I believe it can have an impact across numerous industries. But the problem is that 88% of executives don't want to use AI in mission-critical applications because they can't understand the reasoning path. So relational databases that are used in mission-critical activities. Electricity, it's likely used in mission-critical activities. Yet they don't want to use our technologies. It's phenomenal to think about that. Here's an example. Capital One, credit card company, their job is to issue credit to people. They would love to use machine learning for all types of functions within their organization. Except they can't, because the law requires them to explain the decision for any reason, or the reason for any decision. Now, there's been debates about explainability. There was a good one by Peter Norvig, actually out of Google, who correctly said that we, even as human beings, really can't even explain why we do things, right? We do something. After the fact, we make an explanation and we say that, oh, that's what I thought when I was doing this thing, right? And then there was a partner at Andreessen Horowitz who actually published an op-ed in the New York Times about don't be afraid of AI's black box because human beings are more of a black box than AI. But I think what people forget is that we build products for people. And just like in the beginning of this presentation, when I paused for 10 seconds and everyone stared at me, waited for me to explain why, the ability and the desire to ask why is uniquely human. And the reason we have reasons is so that others can evaluate our actions and our beliefs. The reason why we have them is so people can hold us accountable. Accountability keeps teams together, it keeps companies together, it keeps society together, which is why at Kyndi, we build explainable AI products for government and commercial institutions. Our purpose is to amplify the productivity of human beings using AI technologies while maintaining accountability. And just kind of go back to how we thought about inventing these new algorithms. I think a great quote is actually from one of our advisors, John Soa, who says that the great strength of AI technology is its coverage of nearly every aspect of human intelligence, but its greatest weakness is fragmentation. And what he's talking about, and I'm just going to bundle everything up into two groups of schools of thought, is that these two groups, historically, as I discovered over the last 4 or 5 years, don't get along. I was actually on LinkedIn the other day, and there's a pretty well-known deep learning researcher at a major tech company who wrote on LinkedIn, I can't wait for the good old-fashioned AI folks to die. To die? Like, that's nuts. And there's merits and demerits of both approaches, right? I mean, look at it. And this is actually, I don't have a source on here. I should. This is actually from DARPA. And this is a notional intelligence scale where machine learning is great at perceiving and learning, right? Not very good at abstracting and reasoning. Then you have the handcrafted knowledge systems who are phenomenal at reasoning, can't learn, can't perceive, right? But what if you could fuse those together very, very tightly so that the merits of the other overcomes the demerits. And that's really what we've done here, is we've invented new algorithms that tightly couple together machine learning and KRR. And I believe that for any enterprise application that's going to address a significant business problem within an enterprise, you need 3 legs to the stool. You need machine learning, you need natural language processing, and you need knowledge representation and reasoning. And most of the folks out there are coming in with just one approach. Now, doing that, you would think, all right, I'll just take this library over here and these techniques over here, and I'll just put them together. Well, it's actually not that easy. You have to invent new algorithms. You actually have to be able to machine learn the connections of abstract concepts and how they relate to the meaning of words and complex thoughts. You have to then take that learned network and store it in a larger network of other learned networks and be able to reason over that network in time proportional to querying a relational database. I actually love, there's a quote. I was at Xerox PARC, and one of the good old-fashioned AI guys said, with big networks that you're kind of reasoning over, you may not actually get an answer back before the heat death of the universe. That's the kind of computational complexity that we're talking about with these systems. Oh, and I always forget this last point, is you got to make it reversible, right? So if you use Bayesian, use frequentist statistics, you can go one way. How do you go back to your original point, right? So if you make a decision, how do you go back to why you made the decision? There's actually well-known probability theory out there that can help you with that. So that's great, we have these cool technologies, but what does it mean for the world? So I spoke about this in the opening video, and we were helping a company analyze science and technology journals and just kind of look at the last bullet point, because we were talking about how do you measure the maturity of a certain technology? So the purpose is, if it's something fundamental research, applied research, what is the investment it's going to take to get it to products ultimately I can generate revenue with? So they have PhDs that are using a model called technology readiness level, which I believe was invented by NASA. So it's a score between 1 and 9, right? It takes about 1 hour to 2 hours per document to do this. So we automated that process for them. We visualize it in a little bit of a graph structure. Then when you have this score, say a 5, which is about almost to commercial readiness, you can transition out of the lab at that point. You can click into that triangle, and the system, and this is the key piece, in natural language explains to you why it made the decision. And I say in natural language because I fundamentally believe that to call something explainability or explainable, it needs to communicate with the user at a sufficient level of abstraction. And that sufficient level of abstraction is human language. And it really comes down to, it's fascinating that the speed up improvements that you see from folks is we did 12 months worth of work in 7 hours. I mean, that is just ridiculous. It's something that I didn't even anticipate going into the use case. So we work with, these are customers we've worked with historically. We've now transitioned into pharmaceuticals, oil and gas, capital goods manufacturing, any use case where you have human beings reading a lot of information. You want to automate that process and then explain that to the users. Now, where we're at as an industry, I think, is we're really early. As I spoke about 88% of AI leading companies not wanting to use black box technologies. AI leading companies are pre-chasm early adopters. So it's crazy to think that even the customers that know the technologies, that want to buy these technologies to get an advantage, are still struggling to use our technologies unless we make them explainable. But if we achieve this, if we can overcome that problem and we can cross the chasm and we can get to that mainstream market, I mean, just think about the fundamental change that we can have in the world. I think we're all here at CDL because we believe that AI can fundamentally transform the world for the better. And that's why it's so exciting to come back and see so many great people, because I go into work every day with this David Bowie quote in my head because I fundamentally believe that we can be heroes. Heroes of this knowledge revolution that fundamentally transforms the world. So thank you, Ajay, for everything you've done, your team, CDL. Love this place. Thank you for inviting me back, and thank you very much.